It's sliding into a recession this year, but only barely. The economy contracted by 1.3% in the second quarter of this year. That sparked speculation about the possibility of a recession or two consecutive quarters of decline. Moody says while recession is unlikely, it only expects the economy to grow by 1.7% this year, well below the expected global average. It says growth of 3% is unlikely until 2017 or even 18. South Africa is struggling to grow due to global factors, as well as our own electricity constraints and drought conditions. Moody says the constraints are already reflected in government's rating with a stable outlook. The agency cut South Africa's rating to Baa2 from Baa1 last year. That's 2 notches above speculative or so-called junk status. Moody says the Reserve Bank is demonstrating its determination to keep inflation in check despite the weakening rand, and government has welcomed today's statement. Well, to discuss, we're now joined by Kristen Lindau, who is Moody's lead analyst for South Africa. She's on the line from New York. Good evening to you, Kristen. I'm interested that Moody's says we will avoid recession. Some of our own policymakers, even the finance minister, has been saying maybe we can't avoid it. Just tell me about your logic.
Okay. Well, the issue is that the growth in the first half of the year was adversely affected by drought. Obviously, we saw 2 double-digit downward quarters for agricultural output in the first quarter and second quarter of the year. And we don't expect any particular strength to emanate from that source going forward. I think that a lot of the uncertainty that surrounded the potential strikes in the public sector and the mining sector were weighing on confidence in the first half as well, and that is likely to be to show some improvement in the second half of the year. That being said, there are downside risks to our forecast. I know that just like last year, and for different reasons, we've downgraded our forecast a couple of times already this year, and I think that's true of most observers of the South African economy. And as a consequence, the picture could darken further, but from today's vantage point, we aren't expecting a recession. We are still expecting positive growth on average this year.
All right, the growth positive, but not shooting the lights out by any means, very low. To what extent are we a victim of what's happening globally? Because we're seeing globally growth forecasts being downgraded. We know what's happening in China, uncertainty over American interest rates. To what extent does that affect us? To what extent are we underperforming, as you say, even in light of that?
Well, it's a combination in South Africa's case of both domestic and external events. Last week, we downgraded our own forecast for Chinese growth and for the world economy's growth at Moody's. And South Africa, of course, is not impervious to those changes in light of the fact that it's a very small, open economy. So that's certainly part of the story behind our downward revision to South Africa's growth.
Finally, Kristen, you've said before that government needs to stick on the path we're on, being constrained in terms of spending, not letting debt get out of control, being constrained, basically. If we follow a constrained course, if we are very careful, can we weather the storm? Is it all really up in the air because there's so much going on globally, so much potential turmoil coming our way?
Well, I don't know exactly what you mean by weathering the storm. If you mean avoiding a recession again next year, if you mean stabilizing the public finances.
Avoiding downgrades, avoiding recession, avoiding our economy slowing even further in future.
Okay. Yes, we certainly think that's possible. We have a stable outlook on the rating. That means we don't foresee changes in the rating or the outlook for the next 12 to 18 months. And so we do think it's possible, but it is a very perilous time in the global economy, and South Africa, of course, is feeling the brunt of that.
All right, thank you so much for your time. Kristen Lindau from Moody's saying that we will avoid a recession, which is a great relief, especially to government. And Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, he's been speaking today. He says notable progress has been made to turn around the